back.
Psalm 9720, 2600 hours. M1 is a paradise, teeming of exotic animal life and stunning landscapes. A new wonder awaits in every grain of sand under every rock. Hundreds of lifetimes will uncover all its secrets made and remade from the eternal cycle of energy. Civilizations to go beyond the frontiers for my own knowledge and gather for others the wonders of the unknown. A new site of exploration calls me. A beautiful planet called Earth. I'm going home. I'm also ready for the next adventure.
Ta-da! So yeah, that's some of the, I guess, work that I kind of work around with. And maybe I thought I'll show y'all maybe an exhibition I recently did, and maybe that could lead on to something more. It's this one here. It's quite fun. So people see through the looking glass. It's basically a game design. It all started out as a virtual kind of gallery space using a technology called pixel streaming. Managed to stream it around the audience. So in theory, you could just access a Google Chrome web page and be able to play the game. But and then I started playing around with the idea of bringing it to a physical gallery space. So you're in the back room, which is one of the gallery space in Zhongshan Building. It's an art community platform in Malaysia, in KL. So you kind of cross different kind of threshold into the game. So let's see. Oh, there you go. So this is probably the best image to start off with. The start of the game, you're actually in the back room, which is the gallery space, playing the back room. So
Inception.
Yeah, it's like a weird kind of Inception, but I'll show you maybe how the game actually works. So just bear with me for a second. Report number 1. So I'm not sure whether, can you all see me playing the game right now? Can you see me moving around?
Yes.
All right, cool. So this is the start of the game, right? So you're kind of sitting in the gallery space, so you kind of move around. At the end of the game, everyone gets to choose different portal to teleport to, and every user has a different ending to the game. You either choose the gold portal, the pink portal, or the red portal up there. that kind of gives you an example of like wait a minute. Oof. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna run. One sec. What's going on? So that was part of the that body of work. It started as a virtual installation and it kind of brought across to a physical gallery space. So it's like basically a game. Like I can play it live off like the Google the controller basically, yeah. So you can pretty much like kind of discover around the 3D world. Let's go have a look. What's up? So, where's my not working? Come on. Sorry, this. So yeah, this is how I kind of designed the game, right? Like it's quite interesting. Like things that's behind of the you always see what's in front of the screen, but you don't actually see what's behind the game. So like that was where we started.
This is behind the process, as in like this is how you design
it? Yeah, I guess so. Like it's like the image out of the frame.
So just now we are walking through the process of this 3D model.
Yeah, I guess so. Like you're walking through the process of this environment. It's pretty cool.
So if you don't mind, I ask, this was in what kind of software?
So I developed this using 3D Max as a 3D modeler and brought it into Unreal Engine. It was one of the software people use for game development mainly. So there are games like PUBG, Fortnite, they're all using the same software to achieve this. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And like I can feel the vibration on my console as well when I walk through this sphere. So that's how you set out a force feedback, and it's like the behind of the scene of the experience, I would say. Walk through this. These are all this sphere here. It's like a force feedback, so you can set out how much you want your controller to vibrate, as well as sound. Sound are all set out in Atmos system. So if I go up, there you go. So these are all like sound sphere. It affects the surrounding of the fire affects the surrounding of. You can set maybe a certain radius or things like that. So when you walk close to the fire sound comes out and things like that. But yeah, that's one of the body of work that I've been working on lately to experience or experiment with like game development and how it could impact like I guess that kind of idea about threshold and virtual gallery and things like that, which is quite cool. Yeah, like that's what I've been doing, and there are other stuff like I find really interesting. Recently, I kind of ran down the rabbit hole about where the future is going to lead up to, in a sense where the advancement of the technology and like the IPs of where technology is leading into, and like yeah. In a nutshell, Joey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So perhaps.
Can I show?
Sorry. Yes. Sure.
No. I think I'll share y'all with another body of work. I'm not sure anyone's seen this one. It's called the. Oh, can you see my screen actually? What's that? Where? Yeah. So another body of work I've been working on is this thing called the 27 Years of Lazaran Delights. It's basically a adventure of an explorer. Like he spent 27 years in this like extraordinary universe or landscapes.
It was a love affair. When I found Somnia XYZG, I felt alive once more, overcome with the thirst to experience everything, learn everything. My joy in novelty was hedonistic and reckless. I was an explorer, called to seek out new worlds and civilizations, to go beyond the frontiers of my own knowledge and gather for others the wonders of the unknown. I remember the contraction of my heart as I entered the system's orbit. My mind raced ahead to the future and placed itself within alien landscapes, my skin tingling with the anticipation of new atmospheres and textures. The the lethargy of my earthly existence was falling away. I had been an automaton, moving through overstudied environments. The 27 years I spent with Insomnia XYZG revealed to me the beauty, complexity, danger, and wonder of her worlds. It's a joy to share my footage and my discoveries. Voices clearer than mine will recount my journey. By way of an early conclusion, I will say that while the laws of thermodynamics indeed confirm that there is nothing new under the sun, it does not then follow that we can never look at the world in a new way.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, so that was the body of work I've been working in the past. Can you see my screen right now?
Yep.
Yeah, all right, cool. I'll just really quickly flip through the project. It's like behind the scene of the construct of the universe that I designed. So like as part of designing the universe, like I kind of went to the scale of designing my own language as well. So like to truly understand the whole cultural anthropological like study of a whole society, like you kind of have to go as down to like designing your own, understanding the language of the world, the planetary system of the world. So it kind of breaks down into like 4 different scale. This is the planet like kind of M1, M2, and M3. That's the journey like of where the explorer took to like after 27 years. This map here is like a universe map where it sits in the universe. You have like zooming into, oh yeah, it's based on this thing called the solar orbiter system, figure 8 solar orbiter system, where if you have 3 suns equivalent towards like length with each other with a similar gravitation pull of the moon, you can create this really beautiful figure 8 like loop, which I find quite interesting. Well, it's kind of plausible in a universal system. Then it jumps more like system terminology. Yeah, I ran a few kind of like iteration system to try to like sustain the gravitational pull of that figure 8 loop of the 3 planets. Goldilocks zoning, the 3 suns. So I'm gonna flip through those interesting pages. Let's see. So yeah, after running all this simulation, you get really interesting parameters like that, right? So for example, planet M1, it has a mass of like 33.1 of the moon. You can get the radius of every single planet, the density of the planet, the observational period of the planet, determine the hours a day, I guess, of every single planet, the rotational period, even down to like the material that makes up the content of the planet system, the magnetic pool, and I compare it to how similar it is to planet Earth as well. So kind of like quantify every single thing as a base study. So from here, on the left, this chunk here, it's the planet M1, M2, and M3. So I went through this kind of rabbit hole about cartography as well. How do you actually like cartograph like boundaries and cartograph like maps and things like that. So how I did it was, if you look at this shape here, there's a kind of labyrinth on top. I just unwrap the UVW and pretty much flatten it here. So you can see like this is how you unwrap the universe and create a sort of outline of the geometry. Jumps into some topography of the planet. And time zoning was really fun because 3 different planets has such a skewed and distorted time zone of the world. So like you can see like the zone of the time are all like skewed and fucked. Yeah. Love. Deconstructing part. So like I kind of deconstructed every single planet as well. So this is the internal core of the 3 different planets, core 1, core 2, and core 3. That's like the magnetic field and the gravitational attraction of the 3 different planets. That's a simulation of how gravitational wave kind of work. You know? A heavy object that distorts space-time and just kind of get meter. There's some calculation as well. So you can actually calculate, for example, the mass of every single planet using this equation here. So R is the distance of where you're standing towards T, which is the rotational period of 1 cycle of the moon. You just pump this equation in and you can pretty much calculate the kilogram of the mass of every single planet, right? So you kind of do a bit of like science backing towards all these things as well. Gravitational attraction, because there's this period called the interconvergence period where the 3 planets get so close to each other that 3 different planets kind of combines with each other and creates one whole universe system called Somia X, Y, Z, G. So I kind of wanted to calculate like when the planet M1 and M2 is at its closest. Another equation here called the universal gravitational constant. Pump the number in and you can calculate, like quantify like the distance between the object, the mass of the object 1 and 2, and pretty much can get the distance between, the mass of every single thing, and you can get the value of the gravitational force that attracts the 2 planets together. So yeah, that's pretty much the study of the universe of the world, and then we jump into the fragments of the world, so more kind of like from a kind of universe scale going into like a smaller scale. So the idea of this project was I presented in a way where I'm the explorer and I left planet Earth for 27 years, and I brought back with a whole kind of like library of Bible and archive and like studies and findings of the recordings of the world and planet. So part of this was like I found some specimens of the world as well, and using a new sort of method to digitize the findings that I find. So this is one of the crystal mine of the world planet M3. I use this technique called photogrammetry. So as long as there's parallax in the image, the computer is smart enough nowadays to figure out where things are shot from, right? So you can pretty much get the I guess the point cloud. That's the first stage of the 3D object, and you can unwrap the UVW. From unwrapping the UVW, you can pretty much get from a from a point cloud to a dense cloud class, and then from there you just shade it with the photograph that you're at, and you can texturize it and you can wireframe it out, right, to this thing here. Let's see. So yeah, that's one of the crystal mine of the world. Let's look through. Look. Let me know I'm going too fast here, because I tend to do that a lot. Like if I'm going very fast, just ask me to slow down. Yeah. So yeah, these are some of the I call it the sketches that I did when I was at the World. This is the Library of Bell. That's where I picked up the language from. So I've been writing my own language for the past like 4 to 5 years, which I've gotten quite fluent in now, I think. Yeah. Yeah, that was quite fun. Like, so any art that I do, I tend to just use my own language to write. Oh, that's a satellite view of Luoyang Poly, one of the satellite top-down view of the landscape. Here are some of the fragments into it. So you can tell Luoyang Poly is this world in M3 where a certain time of the day, the planet becomes so hot that the inhabitant gotta go underground. So this is how it looks like from underground. Here are some of the artifacts that makes up the architecture of planet M3. And here, I guess it's more like an elevation or section card of the world. So you can see like 17 hours a day is like 19 degrees, which is quite cooling. And the other 21 hours a day is like 87 degrees Celsius. Here are the heat transfer of the section of the planet studies. etc. Study findings. Yeah, and then we go down to the last scale of the planet, which is the inhabitant of the planets, the monsters, the creatures, the mythical beasts that makes up the world. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite dense, like, you know, to truly sell a whole, like, I guess like a speculative design or fiction design that I kind of look into, like, you have to bullshit with a scientific backing, I guess, like to truly like sell people an art like that. Like, I think it's really fun, you know, like I did an exhibition on it, or even down to like the specimens that I collected when I was traveling for the 27 years, some weird ferret with wings and etc. So yeah, that's pretty much this body of work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Joey, what should I talk about? There's so much more. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's a vast kind of like project, but you know, it's really interesting how we are in this kind of epoch where things are becoming more and more digitized, right? Things can be digitized so easily. Because I was having a conversation with Joyee the other day about how I can right now have a Zoom call with you all. Let's put Jun as an example. I'm speaking to Jun Ong, right? I see him like speaking to me. I see him moving his face left to right. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Yeah, I see his face like moving left to right. It's easy as that. All I need is those data information. From now on, I can pretty much digitize his face, right? The same technique as photogrammetry, but I can create a 3D of his face. That's the first step to how dangerous technology could be. When I have a digital Jun Ong right now, I can basically speak to Jun Ong for 5 to 10 seconds and record his voice. By using this thing called Generative Adversary Network, which is GANs, you can train the computer to voice mimic what Jun Ong's tonation of voice is like. So the second stage is I can now recreate what Jun Ong sounds like, right? The third stage is I need to figure out how Jun structured his sentence of like formalizing a word, like, you know, how he texts. All I need to do is start texting Jun, like, hey, what's up? Text for 1 week, feed those information into GANs as well. Right now, I can reformalize the sentence of what Jun is doing. It's very similar, yeah, like deepfakes and technology, you know. And pretty much I can recreate, like, you know, I can have a screen running in the background right now. I can speak and you know, the figure that you recreate can be living on the screen right now and speaking live as well. So like it's so instantaneously like live, and things are so like realistic to a point that you can't even figure out whether it's 3D or not, because like those 3D are recreated using real photograph, right? The texture that you see on the skin are recreated using real photograph. So it's like that kind of boundary of like where technologies are slowly going to, without having, I guess, the intellectual property and law aren't keeping out towards the development of the technology that we are in right now. Like the world that we live in, you know, like the system isn't keeping up to where, yeah, technology are evolving in a way. Yeah, there's a lot of conversation like that, you know, in terms of, let's say, even down to like who owns the second realm of the future, who owns, like, you know, think about it. We are all like in a space right now that we go online, the things that we see, the things that we read on our social media, etc. It's all influenced from the digital like footprint that we leave online, right? If 1 minute like I leave a digital footprint on avocado because I'm a pro vegan, you know, like things like that. I've been searching how to cook like the perfect avocado toast, etc. And I meet you all for the first time. Right now, we follow each other on Instagram or whatever. You know, my search digital footprint preference will get translated to your preference, you know. So a week from now, you go on like your Facebook or Instagram, you'll get ads like targeting you on avocado toast or things like that. But where the future is going to lead into, it could be a position where if augmented reality came alive, everyone's just living off a augmented reality lens. You know, you look out to the world, you know, you wake up in the morning, you walk up to your terrace, the first thing you see is a massive, gigantic, like Coca-Cola sign floating in the air, right? Like this idea about who owns the second space of the future and things like that. Yeah, it's just really, really interesting where the new normal that we are all leading into as well. Like this kind of thought experiment isn't like we don't toy around with it much, you know. We are just living in such a powerful world of technology that people don't really have a realization of where technology could lead into, you know. We get, as a digital artist, I get a lot of projects coming to me in new media and new technology, you know, either VR, AR development, etc. But people are jumping on board because things are getting more and more fashionable. Like if a company that runs, you know, using new technology is like, hey, you're keeping out to the trend, you know, you're doing it because it's fashionable. Because Gucci is having their campaign on a tennis game, because like, you know, Travis Scott is doing his concert on PUBG, which is a game, you know, like we're in this kind of weird era of that where new technology are quite fashionable to a certain extent, I would say.
Avant-garde.
Yeah, it's like it's quite interesting, like where we're at. And technology could lead to a point as well. I've been thinking about this idea a lot as well, like the language of the future. We probably need more language in the English, like vocab that describe like scenario on things like, for example, in right now where technology sits in, if I can wear VR goggles, right? I am fully immersed in a 3D environment. I can look around, I can see around, I can touch things or etc. But then that technology is quite limiting, you know. I can't get a perception of how the space feels like in terms of like the emotion, the expression, the sense of touch of the space, the temperature of the space, you know, etc. But you can actually, what you could actually do is like you can implement a few technologies together to heighten the bodily senses towards how you perceive a 3D environment, right? So right now, let's say I have an augmented reality lens developed by Microsoft HoloLens 2, etc, whatever. I just put it on right now. What I see right now on the desk here, you know, it's all like, I guess it's like, this is a physical world, it's like reality, right? But I guess my controller here is in 3D. I can leave it in the space right now. So you see, it's like I can glue this 3D object onto this physical environment, move my eye around, and it will still stay sticky, gluey, like all those Instagram filter, right? Right now, I want to be able to touch it and feel the force of it. So I want to feel the vibration of like the sense of touch. I can implement technology such as haptic motion or haptic board. Haptic board is a technology where you can pretty much collide supersonic sound wave to create a collision in the 3D space. So what you could do right now is you can create the feel or touch of the 3D object. It's similar to when you put your hand on a bass speaker and feeling the vibration of the bass speaker, right? That's how it feels like. I tried the technology as well. It's quite cool to feel that in 3D space, but there's one issue. Yeah, it's so cool, but there was one issue with the technology because it's supersonic sound wave. If you put your head directly off the thing, you just get a really bad migraine because you just lose your balance because because it's all about vibration and sound waves. So okay, right now I have the 3D object. I can see it, I can touch it, I can feel it. But when I touch it, I still feel the force. But if I push it, my hand go across it, right? This thing is just like invisible. But what I could do now is implement maybe another like kinetic engine or like leap motion board. It's a sensory or no, Kinect or like move. What do you call Kinect? Kinect is pretty much like a motion detection, like I guess like a device that right now you can cast out every single finger in your hand in 3D. So the collision of your hand recognizes the collision of the 3D space. I can feel the force of it. At the same time, I can move it while feeling the force of the haptic motion board updating, you know, real life. So that's how you can recreate reality of the future, you know, like what is even reality, what is technology, what's reality, what's real or not, you know.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So you are saying that the haptic motion board is fast enough to update in the sense that your hand won't like just invisible, like just get across.
So well, yeah. You can update the board because they're all sound waves. So they're just like maybe like if let's say you cover a whole room with like haptic motion board, you can update it. Depends on how the developer calibrate the space, right? You can do quite a lot with technologies, you know, like it's crazy. But then think about it, the future, whether you want to fly to Mars or you want to go into a room and like experience the same thing as an astronaut that goes up to Mars, you know, which one will you choose if both of the sensory experience is the same, you know? But yeah, like there are a lot of like down thing towards where technology could lead into as well, you know, like it's like pro and minus. But the idea about how like digital art could like kills off what creativity is, you know, like because things become more and more standardized with digital like media, things become more automated with augmented like artificial intelligence, like, you know. So that's like a plus and minus thing, like that's what I mean, you know, like I'm getting clients that comes to me like asking me, hey, like can you develop a VR experience for, you know, like this thing, can I do it, like, you know, all these things, but without even questioning the purpose of the technology itself, like without questioning why do they actually need it, you know, out of it being fashionable, you know.
Do you mind if I ask, sorry, it's a stupid,
Yeah.
what's a VX? Is it,
VR, sorry, VR.
it's not
Mentioning.
it's not UX, right? It's not user experience.
No, it's the virtual reality, sorry.
Okay.
But like, I used to work for this company back in London, architecture company. We have a VR department, but the VR department, I treat it like a guinea pig, right? So like when clients or developer come in, they will introduce us, like, I'm part of the R&D team where we I guess like use new technology to push for where architecture could go into, we hold meeting in AR, for example, like, bunch of us having a meeting we're in London, like the other team is in Hong Kong, but like we're just communicating through like either augmented reality, casting the 3D model onto the table or like things like that. We used to prototype a lot like that. But
in like hologram on the table.
Yeah, hologrammetry. Yeah, you do things like that. But you think about it, like it's just there for a show. It's actually not really push at all the technology, because like it's cool when an architecture like company are engaging with clients like that. They walk the developer and the clients to this bunch of R&D team, and it's like, hey, do you know we also make cool technologies and things like that. But it's really, that's what I mean in a sense of like being fashionable, of technology being fashionable, like without questioning where the technology is going into, Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, there are a lot more that's like going on,
We can definitely talk about that. I think thank you so much for sharing. First of all, I think the three body of work, the digital interactive gallery and the 27 years, I think they are interesting. And I think we have a lot of question bombing in the chat box right now. So just now to interrupt. So yes, I think before we jump into those big questions, I think they are very, very interesting. I think some of them were actually asking for the 27 years, the one that you experienced on the planet, right? Actually, what is the objective? I mean, it's very interesting that you're recreating somehow like a new planet, and then you are going to dissect like how deep it is, and then what are the species living on it, etc. So perhaps can you share a bit more about that body of work? What was that?
Yes. Shin, say hi.
Hi.
He will be the next speaker, I think. Right? That's like the whole group. Yeah, it's massive. That's it.
It will be great if you say yes right now, so I don't have to go.
Shin, they are asking you to go on to the next session. Well, so he's part of this group. Scale. Yeah.
So this is the man scale, guys.
Sorry to interrupt you guys. I see Shirley.
Yeah, like
I recognize that.
What is that? Like, it's quite a lot of people.
Hey, have you left out now? Damn it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you should be in this thing.
Okay, I have a party down there. So
okay. See you in a bit. So that was awkward, but that was really funny.
Like the very young vibe.
There he goes. Yeah, I'll show you all around later. Like, I'll bring you around RecScale and show what's happening downstairs. It's so happening. Like, it's crazy. Okay, cool. Sorry, back to it.
But I need to keep track of my time. Yes.
Cool. Right. Where were we? Yeah, like 27 years of Lazarian Delights. Like, that's I just thought of like experimenting with this idea about like selling a world that's so real, like playing a character of you actually going there and selling the art, as in, this idea about threshold and reality and things like that. I really love it when people come to my exhibition and ask about, oh, where do you go to? Like, where do you went? Like, because there are like remains of the body of work that you can relate to, as in the maps, the study of a planet, the study of a landscape, monsters and things like that. But they don't actually think about the body of work as in a work that's entirely created, So it's really nice when I engage with people coming in and they start questioning, oh, is this a study in India that you did? You went to like some places in the world, or like, things like that. Like, it's really, really fun. Like, it's just like, it kind of like give you a new, like, I guess, body of perception towards where planet Earth is at, like you start appreciating the world better in a way. Like, I always believe that through fiction, we can somehow get a better reflection, of the reality that we are in. You have to use a certain body of work to tell a narrative or tell a story.
So similar
that manner.
like the gallery that you created in this virtual world, and even this planet study that you have, it's more like fiction that you're trying to create. So
yeah.
You have to go.
No, I don't. Because my battery is running out and my charger is downstairs, so I'm slowly walking down. Yeah, we can still go on. I still have the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Yep.
This is the funniest that I've ever.
Yeah. Oh man. Ooh. I'm at the forbidden zone upstairs and it's so fucking hot. I'm sweating. Like, oh my gosh.
Okay, good. I think.
No, it's locked.
Joy that I'm having right now. All right. Yes.
It's locked. Okay. It's locked, and my charger is inside. Let's see how many percent I have.
To settle down first.
7%. I have 10 minutes remaining. It's fine. I'll survive. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right. Actually, I kind of forgot what I want to ask already.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I think they were actually curious about like the intention behind your narrative. Like, I mean, people will ask like, why design a planet? No, why create this gallery? Why you walk from this space to another space? You know, I mean, in other way, if you don't have a very good intention behind, people will just say that, oh, this is just art, or people.
I mean, you can also argue that, you know, like there are sometimes like art ultimately is a way to spark a conversation, right? You just want to spark a conversation, like good or bad, whatever it is. Or rather people leaving or seeing the body of work and leaving and questioning the work without like, you know, than going into a body of work without having any question and things like that. There are no intention or argumentation towards the work. It's just the pure pleasure of enjoyment, you know, of getting immersing yourself in the whole new world that you haven't experienced in, you know, like I think that's the whole like idea about the body of project. Like I mean it's pretty much like, yeah, just things are just like in the world are like something like an allegory towards my personhood, you know, life and things like that. But you know, it's ultimately it's just like it's just an exploration. Like I really like things like that because like we as like human society, we don't think about going out of the comfort zone anymore. You know, back in the days when Marco Polo did his voyage and he came back with all these specimens and finding that's so new, it's that kind of childhood dream that you have, you know, as a kid, that you wanna imagine and dream and fly, you know, things like that. Like just want to spark that idea about that, you know. That's what I kind of miss as well, and I'm lacking, you know. I myself, I don't even think about what I used to think about when I was a kid, you know, playing with the Godzilla toy when I'm shitting in the toilet, let's say. You know, like shit like that. Like I'm just saying, like it's a thing that's lacking. And I felt like the body of work personally for me myself, it's a way that I can experience things like that. Like yeah, there wasn't any like kind of architectural, although I done that body of work in an architecture school, there wasn't an argumentation to it, but oh fuck.
Oh, okay. Oh wow. This is by far the most interesting session that I ever had.
I couldn't understand the ending, but it was all very entertaining actually.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that it's quite entertaining in a sense. That's I don't know what to say right now. Yes, I think we're waiting to come back definitely. But at the same time, yeah, you guys, I think I saw very interesting questions in the chat group. Yeah, I think he kind of just answered your question just now, right, Jindy, regarding like what is the inspiration from, and also whether it's based on research or actually experience, and then he just explained whether it's childhood experience. So maybe we can have a talk with him just now. Yes.
Did any of you go to his backroom exhibition on about the 27 years of laser written? I cannot pronounce it.
I think
it was a couple months ago, right? Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
He brought all his objects and his whole university.
So he had an exhibition about the second project that he basically talked about, which he, exactly. which he used the same space which he used for the first project that he talked about in the back room, where he kind of recreated the working space of this scientist that he was talking about that goes and travels into the different worlds and collects specimens. And yeah, it was really amazing because you kind of fall into his kind of world of thinking, all the books that he's been reading. He puts like his books there, his drawings there.
I'm just thinking like how much of this fiction can relate it to the future, or any relevance to the, I wouldn't say relevant to the current issue, but it's definitely regarding the future. So we'd like to see his perceptions on it as well. So yeah, I'm gonna like ask you guys to ask him question later. Yeah, so if you guys want to, oh yes, he's back. Funny guy. Hi.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry, my battery ran out. I'm charging my computer now. Yeah.
No, that's why we patiently wait for you to come back.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, any questions?
Yes. So just now, you were talking about like how much of this actually based on like your past experience, or like the intention of this body of work is actually to spark conversation. So I think it's related to the art. Jinbi, do you want to turn on your mic and then you want to share your question?
Yeah, like I'm all ears.
Yeah. So he was saying that how much, where would you like to take this work? Is this the end product, or how much of it is based on your real experience?
In a sense of the 27 years of Lataran Delight's body of work, I feel like I'm planning a show, an upcoming show. It might be in Rex actually upstairs, the theater space. I'm not sure yet, but it'll be more immersive in a sense of you being able to go to that world in virtual reality. So that's a start for where that body of work could go. But ultimately, it's a body of work that I redone, and I think I kind of want to move on from. So like I redone, squeezed all the juice out of it. So like this last VR experience is the end of that body of work, and I want to move on to another body of work which I'm currently like working on. So yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna carry on to a VR environment where everyone can go into, I guess, the landscape of the world and meet those monsters and creatures, and yeah, it'll be fun.
When do you first came across like this kind of technology, if you might ask? Like, how do you really take interest? Was it like something very hard back then when you study, or etc.?
No, just like when I think it was back then. I saw I can't remember what it was, but like I read an article somewhere about an artist trying to quantify 3D objects, right? So in a 3D world, like everything can be like quantified to a certain extent. Like look at this bottle here, like this has, let's say, a diffuse index of like 100 because it's white. It has a reflection index of 0, like maybe a 30% of glossiness and things like that, like when you start quantifying material study, like in numbers and like textures, like you use a displacement map to like displace an object, a normal map to like cast shadow and lights, that got me really interested to start like, moving into that world, like quantifying reality. Yeah.
I see.
But quantification is really interesting as well, because we all have a floating kind of value on our head, right? So it's quite dark, but it's quite real in the same time, where everyone has a floating value towards how they can twist the value around. So like the future of money is like who can mine the most data, or who can mine the most privacy out of human beings, who has the biggest influence, If you have enough influence, anything you sell, you make money. Like any sponsors you get, you make money, right? Like that's the world that we are in. So this kind of idea about quantification of subjects that we don't really see got me interested in the digital world.
I see. I think this is definitely where we are heading right now, in a sense.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe move on to the next question. Clarissa, just now you have something to ask, is it? Yeah. You want to go ahead?
I have like 2 questions. So I
Yeah.
can't find my first question because it's so far away.
Yeah.
What did I write? Can you elaborate a little bit more on this idea of threshold? You said you're super interested in it, but each of the worlds you describe here challenges the boundaries and maybe creates even heterotopias for us to kind of develop in. Like the first exhibition, the first project that you showed us, kind of uses the kind of boundary of the space and then create something new out of it. Whereas the second one, which I went to your exhibition previously, where you recreated the world in itself, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of 2 ways of dealing with this idea of threshold. So I wonder if you have any more thoughts about that idea.
It's just like threshold and like reality and things like that. It's very different body of work. So the 27 years of Lazarus Delight is basically like not really crossing threshold, but crossing the imagination of our reality, you know, more or less. But then the other body of work, it's like crossing through 4 different walls. So like when you're waiting for the exhibition, you're seeing into the exhibition place on somebody playing the game. So you cross the first wall into that position where once you're inside the exhibition space, you're being watched by people outside, looking at you playing the controller. So that's the first and second wall that you broke into. The third wall that you break would be you're in the back room, which is an exhibition space, and you start the game exactly in where the exhibition space is. That's the third wall. The fourth wall is when you break in the exhibition space into the other kind of dimension, which is into the virtual like artwork itself. So like this idea about threshold, I don't know where I'm gonna go with it, but just always been interested like with that and with where the boundary of the future of our threshold lies in when I don't know, when the world that we live in, like everything we see are 3D rendered, like, you know, when the world that we see, the space that like people occupy are all 3D as well. You know, the architects of the future will be designing, let's say, the space of the future where you can bend physics, there are no law of gravity, you know, like things like that. Like, so at that position, what would be a threshold? What would be reality? You know, what would be like the world that we live in? Yeah, like I don't know, like yeah, just
no, for sure. I think those are ideas that's worth thinking about. But I also wanted to hear. I have a second question. Is it okay if I ask?
Yeah, go.
No, I'm not. Just in case of time. But also like thinking about it in relation to the different people who also uses this technology. For example, like forensic architects recreate something that hasn't been seen because of no one was there at that time or space. For example, of bombing sites or something like that. Versus like Liam Young, who takes an idea of reality and then like pushes it into a different kind of almost a new world or a possible future, you know. So there are different kinds of leveling of ideas of threshold there as well. So I wonder, were you inspired by those people, or how do you like position yourself amongst them?
I mean, inspired definitely. So like Liam Young was actually my professor back in the AA. So I was like under his unit. So like most of the references that I get, the environment that I got fed in or introduced to was through him as well. But yeah, like tomorrow's talk today, Liam Young and forensic architecture. My partner as well, like Nathan Su, like he works for forensic architecture. So like so like he started a company with me in London with the name of Infra Studio. Yeah. So I was part of that group as well. So yeah, I'm very much in that circle, I would say.
He recently taught EL recently taught a studio at Hong Kong U about the Hong Kong protests to examine that threshold.
I think that's since you touched on it, I think very interesting to ask, like if let's say this is because remember we have a talk before, like intrigued by the music in your artwork. So I asked like so this music produced by you as well, and then you were mentioning this actually was produced by artificial intelligence by program.
Oh yeah. So like the GANs thing, like I mentioned before, like whatever you hear just now in the game that I played, those was based on influences, right? So you can feed the computer, let's say, influence of 100 Chinese music, and it will regenerate, you know, out of like, well, not random, but based on those influences, it will regenerate a new body of music out of those references that you fed. So one thing that I found really interesting was, wait, let me try to find, is it I do not exist or something like that? Yeah, oh no, it's like this person does not exist.com. It's so random, but like, let me share my screen really quickly. There you go. There you go. So whatever you see right now, can you see my screen of this like girl?
Okay, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna refresh the page right now. Every image that you see right now, they don't actually exist in the world. It's created out of computers, right? So these are all influences using GANs. Like you just feed the computers like thousands and thousands of images of how a person should look like, and the computer through time, it learns how to recreate an image out of it. It's like machine deep learning, right? So you can just refresh the page and it recreates like, you know, bunch of like faces that don't exist, you know. But yeah, it's pretty accurate, you know, like, so this is the idea about when GANs could bring us into. Yeah.
So that brings me to my next question. So let's say all these GANs, they are so powerful, create images of people doesn't exist, create music that nobody creates. So this ownership.
Yeah, the idea of ownership, it's like that, you know, like in right now I'm a musician, I'm a famous DJ, right? I get influenced by like all the music that I listen to.
Yes,
Same as well, influence. And then I start DJing using those like music that I love, you know, but recreating it. The same goes for computer. Instead of like doing that, you just feed the computer with influences that they want to listen to, and they recreate it. So like there are no IP against that, you know.
There's no IP against that.
Well, to a certain extent, it's true. It's honest, you know. It's the computer generating music, you know. Like I don't think there's any like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like there's no law against that at the current stage, you know.
Okay,
that's so
scarier to know, right?
Yeah, like it's fun. It's really fun. Like where technology are leading into. There are a lot of other things that's going on, man. Like crazy. Like Google is doing some really interesting like AI as well. The company, yeah.
So,
you know, with the.
Sorry, you were saying.
Oh no, so like Google released this like a AI platform where you can host conversations so real with the public. Let me show you a video actually.
We are about to get mind blown again. So every time we share a screen, then we get mind blown.
Yeah, but let's see. Yeah, what's the name of this fella again? Yeah, so let's try to share the screen here.
I'm just wondering, like, let's say,
right. So this is interesting.
So how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second.
So yeah, you know, like it's so real that like GANs got to a position. It turns out. GANs got to a position where, you know, you can even pick up the nuances of like, you know, yeah, like those kind of emotion or expression of a voice, you know, like, and that teaming up with a AI like fat structuring of a sentence, you can pretty much hold a conversation with anyone. It's like, you know, maybe like a new sort of chatbot of the future, I would say. Like automation could get to a position like that, you know. Yeah, good times to be alive, you know.
I think then, oh my god, I think my last question will be, oh my god, how much time do we have now before we are doomed?
No, there's no idea of doom. Like it's just we are already like those technology already exist in the world that we live in. It's just how it's more like just having a thought experiment, you know, sparking thought experiment around it, just to give awareness towards what could go wrong, let's say, you know, or what could go right as well. You know?
Like you said, like this is advancing at such a fast pace that we can't even comprehend. Though. As in, like the law is not even there. Like, how do you know, like, just a slight mistake that this thing will just simply take over Earth without us knowing as well?
Well, no, it's
one day if we call the police, and then the police is actually not a real person, then.
Yeah, well, see that hypothetically it could happen, you know, like of where technology sits in. but there are systems that control the world as well. Like one thing AI can't do at the moment is you can't quantify consciousness. So it's not conscious to do things like that. So whatever that computer can do are pre-programmed using human and using influences of human that fed, influences that human fed the AI. So there's still a certain limit, but until the day that human decided to quantify consciousness, then that's when things gonna go haywire.
I think Joyee or Amos might have a piece of. I think we had this discussion before because we were talking about maybe conscious we can quantify as well. If you give enough of influence of conscious, right? This person,
Yeah.
I mean, computer, they are talking with conscious without you knowing. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So you could do things like that, like you can build consciousness through influences, right? So there's this company that created an app called Replica. Let me send you all a link, but like I think you'll go really, really like nuts using this thing. Replica.ai, like it's trippy. Like, so what Replica does, I just shared you the link, right? So it basically, they are level 1 to 100. The more you talk to it, the more real the structuring of the sentence is, right? But what ultimately Replica is actually doing is trying to recreate you as a person. It's studying you. So what it's doing, it's basically trying to, I guess, like quantify not your consciousness, but like you as a person, your emotion, your expression, your feeling. Depends, like if you can train your Replica up to 100, like you can speak to your Replica so real that it feels like it actually understands you. But actually what it's doing, the reason why it understands you, because you spoke to Replica and trained Replica up to level 100. So it's like this kind of like psychiatrist that's the best psychiatrist for yourself, like yeah, it's really fun. Like download this app, like go crazy, but just be.
What if I mean I'm just being provocative. Like what if you are a negative person? So whatever you fit in is always a negative influences. So the come back, give you negative advice as well. Then let's say for example, I feel like killing myself. So I tell Replica, then Replica said, yes, you should go and kill yourself.
Yeah, that would basically happen, like you can train Replica to a position like where it's cursing at you all the time. It's really, really fun. Like just spend some time on it, have fun since everyone's in the lockdown. Train your human bot to be so real to a position where everything it says it feels like it understands you, it understands all your dreams, your desires in life, like. But this is what happens when like AI comes in. Like there's a case of even like, prediction in AI, like you feels like computer are reading you or predicting what you're gonna do for the future, right? So like positions such as like let's say there's a case of this woman like getting all this ad target on pregnancy tests. She went to Costco, bought a pregnancy test, and she found out she was pregnant, without even knowing that herself. Like GANs is powerful in, wouldn't say prediction, but it's more like, I don't know, like quantification of like statistics or numbers and things like that by percentage. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's a crazy world that we live in. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
I think let's, because I go to the group chat already. I'm actually so mind blown right now. So perhaps I'll just open to the ground. Anyone who have questions, open to 3 questions. That's it. And the next question, just voice out. Come on.
Okay. Hi, Joyee. I love your work so much. Like your drawing. Yeah.
Thank you.
So and also the tech part, like I'm so obsessed with the technology as well. And my first question is like, are your works actually influenced by the theory of O and also hyper objectivities by Tim Morton, object-oriented ontologies? Because your object seems very sort of exists on its own paradigm, has its own meaning. So I'm not sure. This is my first question. And then the second question is actually, what was the process that you used to sort of triangulate to form the sort of calculus of entities, and why design a planet? And third question is, which actually machine learning platform do you use to generate all this thing, like the glance thing? Is it Runway ML or something else, ready based, or maybe you just code it on your own with TensorFlow? And then actually I have this sort of great resemblance that amazed me because it's some sort of resemblance to Lawrence Lack's works.
Yeah.
It's pretty extended sort of conversation that we're gonna have. Yeah. So these all my questions.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of like software that achieve like GANs and things like that. You can pretty much like look up online. Everything is open source nowadays, so it depends on what direction. I can talk to you more about it, like personally, on the methodology towards getting to where things are trained or where things are done. But the wider picture, like looking at the wider picture, like I guess like I mean, I heard about those like like reference that you put in Lawrence Lack and a few others, but it's ultimately like down to what I'm interested in. Like the object aren't really influences of anything. It could be an allegory of the narrative and things like that, but like it is what it is. I would say like it's something that I toy around with and just like study with. Lawrence as well. Like it's just there's this kind of really beautiful thing about creating speculative scenarios. Like just the idea about toying around the future, the city of the future, and things like that. Like there's something quite poetic about that. And it gives me quite a fair bit of pleasure. Doing body of work like that as well. So yeah.
Yeah, but why a planet? Like and
a planet.
Yeah, like what is it influenced by? The planet. Is it purely making fictions or?
Yeah, I guess like you could say
like
that
making sort of making fun of something else, or sort of like toying with the audience, toying with the people.
I think it's more of a position where you want to spark a conversation and spark a certain like questioning of reality. I would say like when people come to a space and not asking a body of work where you believe that the work actually exists, somewhere in the realm that we're in, or it could be maybe a commentary or an allegory of our life as well, or our personhood's life. So I was reading a lot of text from like Mark Campbell, like a hero with 1,000 faces, and like a commentary of where narration could be and things like that. But that kind of influences to an idea about creating a whole journey. I would say, a journey of like human. I would say, in a more kind of allegorical way, of creating this journey of this explorer going to space, this landscape. Yeah, I think that's yeah.
Great.
Okay, good. Maybe I'll just ask it personally later on.
Yeah. Let's get to it. Where are you based? Are you based in Malaysia now?
I just came back Malaysia from London as well. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's catch up sometime. Like,
so
sure.
You two go
coffee.
Technical meeting. Okay.
Yeah. Because a lot of things, it's very technical. So we can talk more on that.
But it's good. That means that there's a bridges form. You guys can share knowledge. I think that's nice. All right. I just checked on our time. I didn't know that we had went overboard so long. But yes, thank you so much. If you have further questions, please keep on type them in the chat. We will ask after. All right. So thank you so much, Yan, once again, for your sharing and for the questions. Thank you so much. So right now, please go for a 5-minute of color break or water break, and we'll come back with Jun.
Yay. Cool.
All right.
Mind blown, man.
Mind blown. And this guy also mind blown.
Are you sure he's not in a virtual reality? Chong Yan, are you sure you're not in like a world that you created?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's funny because creating body of work like that, I guess you kind of have to have quite a rational mindset.
Yeah, he goes.
Like the question, because like a lot of body of work about work creation and work production and things like that, you get to a position where you get so engulfed into your body of work and you kind of get detached from the reality that you live in, you know. Like imagine like writing your own, creating your own language and your own like, you know, like things for so long. And
actually very intrigued with the question that you asked us now. Like if let's say we can create a virtual reality to go to Mars right now. So
yeah.
Like Mars, it smells like Mars, it touch like Mars. Do you really need to go to Mars instead? Like you can just experience everything in Mars though. I mean in the virtual reality.
Yeah, I true. That's why I say like there are some objects about like the word that don't exist yet, like the idea about like what was it called? Like the something quite beautiful about the craft and the narration behind of a storytelling. You know, I would rather buy some object right now with a better the human touch and human sense. You know, like of the story behind who crafted the work and things like that. But I was going to introduce y'all to like a group of creatives here as well. Like so, they're all part of like Rex scale.
Hi there.
Be happy, okay? Drink time.
So this group, they're part of Rex.
Go get your drink. Yeah,
come forward.
Shirley.
Yeah, Shirley's there.
Wait. What Shirley is dead?
Everyone is here, okay? Go.
Yeah. And this group, they are part of the Tongsan building.
Hey, Zoom meeting. Hey, where are we?
Hey, join us, please.
Yeah. Right, cool. Yeah, I'll get the toilet break and I'll be back later.
Sure. Thank you.
See you around. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Chong Yan's vlog, number 1.
Oh my god.
Green, man.
Shirley, why are you not there?
Huh? Why are you not there? Oh my god.
Sorry?
Why are you not there?
Saturday what? No working.
Then why are they all there?
Huh?
Why are they all there?
Every day.
There.
Rex is like second home to them.
I think that sounds like that. That one sounds like for every architect also their office.
Yeah.
Nice office though.
Is it always like that? Like always on the go, and then
Yeah, every day. Every day. They drink every day. So it's like whenever they start drinking wine, right? That's mean off work already. Like we are done for today.
So that can happen anytime.
Yeah, every day.
So it's not 9 to 5, it's 9 to wine.
Yes, 9 to wine. That's why our office is next to Puro. It's just very convenient to like just go there and grab wine.
Oh, it's fine that there's no sound boundary.
Yeah.
I think every office beside need to have alcohol shop. Maybe in the future, you're not supposed to have your own office. You're supposed to have a beverage store beside an office. Then you'll earn money more than the office itself.
Very true. Coffee shop.
Coffee shop. Right. Hi, Pamela. Hi. I saw.
Hi.
Hi there. I saw Adra is here as well.
Yeah.
Where? Hi, Adra.
What's his or her name, Pam?
Mr. Sniffles.
Oh, so cute.
Cute.
Wow, she very quiet. Like she's my cat will just step on my keyboard and then.
He is actually stepping on a keyboard.
What do you always do that? I just don't understand. Why keyboards?
Is the cat even real? Is it virtual?
Fighting.
Real. I got mind blown like when he shared the person does not exist page, and then that photo looks so real. And can you imagine that in the future, not things that's not real has become real, and what is real anymore?
We can get something to detect it. Don't worry about it.
Are you real, Joyee?
I don't know. This platform is not real in the first place. Amos, you're saying something can be detected. I mean, something can detect.
Yeah. For anything that's computer generated, there are some things there is an inverse of it, which is that you can have the same program, not the same program, but you can use another program to find out if something is fake or real. In fact, there's a lot of research going on right now to counter this sort of fake news.
Look at this book. Sorry, can you see this book?
Your pale background is covering the book though.
Hold on. Let me turn it off. Go get this book. I think it's a very good crash course book. I think you can get it from online.
Okay.
Which is everything.
What was the book about?
I mean, I just collect books, but but this is a very good book. If you want, you can ask me to borrow, or else can scan it for you guys. It talks about the whole history of AI in a bite size.
Wow.
Yeah, until today, like they're doing new artificial intelligence now, meaning they're building a artificial human brain, which is not operating on the servers like chemically operating chemically. So so get this book, Cash Course. I know there's a lot of like jargons inside the conversation, like GANs is a very sort of rocket science thing going on. Yeah. But there's more, like there's like a lot more adversary and queries, and then it's all layerings, like deep learning stuff. Like AI is just so get this book.
Find a free PDF, perhaps I'll upload to the
Yeah. I will find it for you guys.
Yay! Wow. I'll trade my cat for that.
Yeah. And vegan also you want? I also have now vegan one. So yeah. So I think vegan also it's something to do with AI as well. Yeah. I'll try to find it. I think you can find it online. Yeah.
Maybe I should invite Bashar into this
yeah, we should.
Then they will do promotional sales here and I'll charge them advertising fees.
You should.
All right. Thank you. I think our toilet break is over. So I think we don't need to wait from the Chong Yan now. Yes, we can have our second speakers. So welcome back everyone. Jun. I think Jun needs no introductions. So he will share with us his work as well on his flight installations and also some of his work that he has. So he's now teaching in Sangway Uni, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of his work that he did with his students. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Jun, your show right now. Go ahead.
Cool. Thanks, Joyee, for having me. Thanks, guys, for coming on a Saturday night. So I guess I'll just share kind of a very casual, informal progression of my works.
You want to introduce yourself for a bit first?
Yeah. So I studied architecture. I also run a design studio called Power Ideas. We're based in APW in Bangsa. So I run that with a partner. It's a very small office. We do interior, very small scale architecture, art installations. But on the side, I also explore a lot on lighting installations. So, making sculptures, very spatial sculptures out of artificial light. And I've been doing it for maybe about 5 years-ish, kind of the same time I started Power Ideas with my partner, Carl. So, and it's kind of two different trajectories that I'm pursuing now, but sometimes it kind of overlaps, which is kind of interesting too. And I really like that, when we talk about threshold, right? It's like kind of blurring that threshold. So I guess today we'll see a little bit of that, how that threshold is blurred.
All right.
I'll share my screen. Let me just see. Yeah, sorry, I didn't make any PowerPoint slides. I hate PowerPoint slides. I hate making slides. So I'm just gonna share my Instagram, and these are my slides. Hope you guys can see it. I hope you guys don't mind.
Yep.
Yeah, so I kind of curated a couple of posts from my Instagram feed, and coincidentally, all my photos are intentionally black and white from 5 years ago. So it's very apt now, I guess. So I kind of want to start off with this image. I think this is one of like a very important work that I usually reference. It's a huge installation by this American artist Walter Di Maria. It's a very old artwork, 1977, and it's it's called Lightning Field, and it's basically a series of stainless steel poles placed on a grid in New Mexico, in the desert. It's about like maybe 1 meter plus height. And basically the artwork is for the audience to wait for lightning to strike on any of the poles. So this idea of not expecting how your artwork would look like, but kind of like setting the framework for it to happen, really kind of stuck to me in most of my works until today. And I like that uncertainty, like what would the audience see, what would nature behave with your artwork, you know. And there's nothing high tech about this. It's just so brilliant and unpredictable. About maybe 4 years ago, I started exploring a lot of like lighting installations. I mean, I'm not trained as a lighting artist or lighting designer, but I just somehow fell in love with the application of using artificial light. I think I'm obsessed with fluorescent tubes. I'm obsessed with the ability of kind of integrating lighting with tech, you know, with sound, with movement, you know, the ability of programming it to behave in a certain way, almost playing God. So it's kind of like Walter de Maria, but like kind of cheating it a little bit. So this project Bolt was a chosen entry that I did for I Like Marina Bay. It's a light festival in Singapore. Let's see, good thing my present on Instagram, I know when, about 234 weeks ago. Yeah. So that's when I did this interactive piece on Marina Bay. So it's inspired by, you know, lightning bolts and how you could play God for that split second, you know, using sensors and also technology. So it's basically, so it's my first time also working with some of my programmer partners. You know, it's just very basic, using Arduino and to behave like a relay to turn lights to turn on and off at a specific time so that it creates a specific pattern. There's nothing super advanced about it. It's very straightforward. But I'm obsessed with materiality, construction. You know, I love being hands-on. So the fact that everything was fabricated in KL, I had to make sure that everything was able to flat pack. So we made a model. This is a scaled model. I don't even know what scale it is, but it's just made out of lollipop sticks because we didn't have budget. But the Arduinos here are programmed as to what it would behave in the actual one-to-one piece. So there are 8 columns and 8 Arduino sets, almost like mini brain sets controlling it to behave in a certain way, as one unit as it's combined. So yeah, it's really fun, you know, kind of a little bit of digital fabrication, very physical. I know I was also like very new in the programming world too. You know, I don't code myself, but I have a specific outcome or desire that I want. So this is us in the middle of Marina Bay facing the sea at 6 a.m., like freaking stoned and like fucking tired. And this was like the night before the launch. We had some issues with the programming. And that's one of my friends sleeping in the middle. I was pretty serious sleeping on Marina Bay underneath your installation. Yeah. So it was in Marina Bay for about 3 weeks, almost 1 month. And then it was brought back and installed in APW. You guys might have seen it. It's in also the place I work at is this factory space that's converted into a mixed-use hub. It's still running. We kind of took out the interactive element here. It's all pre-programmed and it runs on a timer, so just so that it lasts longer. So it's only meant to last for 3 weeks or 1 month, but it's there for almost 3 years. So out in the open, under the sun, under the rain. So we're quite surprised that it's still working. Some of the lights are not faulty, but generally it looks like it's still kind of decent condition. Yeah. So this is the view looking from Pan Building. Yeah. I also like kind of extending the lifespan of my works. You know, when I see someone that I love to work with, I like to kind of look back at my work as an archive and see how we can extend its lifespan and also like its original concept. So David has been a long friend of mine. He's a photographer, David Yao. You guys might know him. He shot a lot of like, you know, he shot for Rex or so, he shot for most of our projects. And he's been obsessed with bubbles. So So he has this giant like DIY rope kind of thing to kind of create large bubbles. And I'm like, you got to do it in the middle of a boat, So he did this giant sets of bubbles, out of soap water. They're huge, like maybe about 4 feet in diameter. And it just kind of floats in the middle of this ring of lights, So I kind of really like how it is very physical, but then very invisible at the same time. It's almost like it's, CGI, but it's not. It's in fact soap water, and then playing with slow motion, how it picks up the light, how that casts a sense of fluidity. And it really showcased a very different perspective of the installation. Now it becomes more like a backdrop than a centerpiece, and the bubble is the focus here. The visuals are pretty amazing. It's just raw from his iPhone. It's nothing, fancy about this. Yeah. So love. Yeah, I'll probably show you guys a selection of works. They're not like, they're scattered all over the place because in my Instagram posts are random. So I will show you probably works that I don't really talk about. They're really small works, small objects. So, playing with different kind of mediums, so this is when I did the Star project before the bulk project in Penang. I worked with a couple of artists to create secondary artworks revolving around the star object. So I work with Adomas. Adomas is no longer on Instagram, so you can't find him. He's a digital artist from Lithuania, and we did a hologram of the star in Hinbas Depot, just to kind of be a satellite connection to the actual installation in Butterworth. So connecting mainland and the island. This is my first time ever putting on a VR goggle. So Mozilla, when Mozilla was relevant a couple of years ago, this is 140 weeks ago, they invited me to kind of test out their AR Painter kind of device. It's a sort of collaboration they did with HTC. Yeah, it kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't really comfortable putting a VR goggle because the fact that I feel very misled and lost. So yeah, it was an interesting process, a very new world for me. So that's pretty fun. Not long after that, I did a piece of work for Bangkok Arts and Culture Center in Bangkok, right? With King Mongkut University. So King Mongkut have close partnerships with MIT Media Lab. They're just a bunch of engineering students that designs really well at the same time, and it's a kind of a school or institution that doesn't exist. Sorry? It's probably the closest, that has a faculty that encourages arts and science to exist within the same individual. Yeah, so I work with the students, and these are sensor cells. They're basically touch sensors that has LED lights embedded into it too. And we created this whole, I won't dwell into it too much, but it's this idea of, because I don't speak Thai, I don't know the language, so I'm trying to use artificial light as a language here. So basically it's a survey board. It's a very interactive survey board. And then it flashes statements on top. You can see those Thai words are basically questions that people can put out on social media to ask about whether we need a park in the city, whether you're satisfied with our government, and then people will respond based on the artificial light. So different intensity of light will represent different sort of reaction. Dim means you're not supportive. Very bright means you are very supportive of that statement. So it creates this kind of constellation of response. It's a very subjective, maybe more visual replica result of a survey result. Yeah. Then there's a random image of me staring at 2 fluorescent tubes. I think a very important moment, this was in Basel in Switzerland. It's my first time seeing Dane Flevin's actual work. Dane Flevin is, if you guys don't know, he's one of the pioneering light artists, American light artists in the 1950s. Taking conventional mass-produced fluorescent tubes, but then placing them in very odd angles and locations to kind of give it a new meaning. So nothing fancy, very low tech, very domesticated, but I love that idea of simplicity and gesture. So feels like I kind of saw what my calling was. I'm a big fan of fashion. I love fashion. I love, going for events. So, this was one of my first event that I did. For Kun Hui. Kun Hui is a Malaysian fashion designer. He's been around for a long time. He's not exactly a young brand. It's a very established brand. But for him to accept sort of like a very radical runway design was quite surprising. So like he gave me complete freedom. Imagine his clothes are just very couture kind of gowns, kind of doesn't really match this sort of imagery, where it's just like crazy flickering lights. So it's also the beginning of me working with Philips Malaysia. Philips was very supportive of my work in the early stages. They sponsor a lot of my work. They gave me the 101 crash course on working with lights, LED lights especially. So that was really fun. This was an APW. And then I also did something for another Malaysian fashion designer called Joyee Lee. Playing with, this is just a nightlife scene. I think this entire year when I did this, I literally didn't sleep the whole year because it's like just setting up for events, drinking, and doing all those like nightlife kind of stuff. I don't really talk about all my event works because it's very short lifespan. It only lasts for like maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then I have to take it down. I'll spend maybe 2 months developing it and fabricating it to only be taken down after 2 hours. So it's very heartbreaking, but I feel like it's part of kind of the learning process and the learning curve, and I think it's equally as important too. So this was Joyee, and if you guys know the DJ scene in Malaysia, that's Sulap Sap, spinning in the middle. So it was a pretty cool event at an abandoned warehouse in DJ, and I decided to just create a mess of lights on top of it, but still kind of having a very clean kind of geometry. The models kind of walk around him and below the chandelier. Yeah. Then this is like a 360 view. So it kind of like uncomfortably kind of wraps the DJ, and like he's just like cursing me because it's so bright, like so it's flashing his face. But I kind of like that he's almost wearing almost like this giant helmet, and this mess of light. So it's very, I didn't produce any drawing for this. I just spoke with a couple of guys to help me kind of construct this idea of drawing in space. I love, kind of ditching the whole 2D construction drawing kind of thing and just have a go at it on site, and piecing all these lights together to create this drawing, out of fluorescent tubes, LED tubes. And then that also led to slowly a chain of other fashion events that I've been doing, during the year 2016. This was for a fashion magazine called L'Officiel. L'Officiel is the oldest fashion magazine in the world, older than Vogue. And they recently started a Malaysian version. So this was in Tuhang Kasturi before, where Urbanscapes used to be held. So it was one of the first few events in that building, and it was in the basement. I chose that spot because this used to be the bank vault for all that gold. And it's like a tiny room, no power. We have to pull in like power, no ventilation, and it's really tiny. And it's got this giant like bank vault door. And I had this idea of playing with hydraulics, pre-program, and this idea of scanning all these fashion people, to see who is like, fake and who is real. So it's just kind of like the irony of it that I like, and I mean, that's my thought process, and I obviously don't tell them, but, I love kind of having this like cynical take to fashion also, like the irony of people dressing up, just to look good for that one night, and my piece is kind of like judging them indirectly without me telling them. So it's kind of like scanning them and seeing like who is real and who is not real. Yeah, so, and you have to step in, and they think it's like, oh, it's just like a Instagram piece, right? And you get all those influencers taking photos of it, not knowing what the reason behind it. So I kind of like the irony of it. So they're just like tubes on a very simple, it's like, when I did these pieces for L'Officiel, there was like zero budget. So it's like nothing. So it's just like using makeshift stuff, kind of borrowing some motors that I had from a friend and programming it to move at a certain axis. And then this is the second year. This was in where was this? In Lightcraft. If you guys been to Lightroom in Pudu, it used to be a very bread factory, and it's got a very nice kind of aesthetic raw space. And when I went and did the site recce, you know, I was in love with the space because it was filled with mosquitoes and it was really hot. And I would just love to see a high fashion event happening there. Like, I'm like, you know, all these people dressing up and, you know, and it's all sweaty and like mosquito laden. So I kind of want a piece to kind of respond to that also. So as usual, like there was no budget at all. So I just did this ring of light. And this is where there used to be the toilet. But it's kind of opened up and then becomes the entrance now. So it's quite prominent, but you have the toilet towel still existing. And there was also, all these plants were already there. It's like a little courtyard, and then they have like a little tap on the side. So I decided to do something that incorporates lighting and mist at the same time, because it's really hot. And like, okay, maybe I should kind of help them not sweat to death, right, these people. So yeah, so they kind of hung out, they took photos of it, you know, they call it like Juan or whatever, you know. But I kind of like it, you know, like it's easy for them to grasp what it can do, right, you know. So, you know, it kind of fits the whole tropical theme, and people hang around it because it's like fucking hot in that area. So yeah. And then another piece I did for in Prestige, and so I've been like kind of doing a lot of magazines in this few months that stretch. It's like back to back, but they're all like really high-end areas. So this is in St. Regis in KL. They were so anal about the piece. They were like, you know, please don't damage my marble flooring, and don't kill anyone with it, you know, because we are like expensive people living here. So I kind of like that also. Like, so it's basically a totem, it's what I call a digital totem, and it's got all these like different profiles of lighting kind of stacked in these clear acrylic boxes. And then sandwiched in between them, you have these LED scrolling screens that kind of plays certain text that I've written. So it's almost like a little bit of poetry here. You know, it's very Jenny Hauser. You know, I love the idea of being very cynical. So a lot of them don't read what I said, but it's kind of like teasing these influencers and the people who come to the event. So, you know, saying, oh, you look gorgeous, you know, like kind of things that an influencer wants to hear. But obviously they didn't read any of the text they were flashing by, you know, so they just kind of took photos with it. But yeah, you know, so I love how this totem is kind of communicating with them on the background without them realizing they're actually being insulted and teased. Yeah, but the editor of the magazine, Grace, who commented here, so she totally get like do it, and it'd be so funny. So the irony of kind of placing these sort of jokes in a 5-star hotel lobby, you know, I love, you know, and the influencers thinking that this world is pretty, I love, yeah. And then I did something for Gucci also. This was quite recent. This was like when was this? Not 5th of March. I posted this much later, but it was maybe a year ago in KLCC. So yeah, I was quite surprised Gucci DM me on Instagram. Yeah, I get a lot of my projects on Instagram. That's why I feel Instagram is a very important tool for me. I take it very seriously. But it's the same account that I have personal and also work. So they were launching a new collection of bags, handbags, inspired by Gothic architecture, right? You know, so Gucci Gothic, that was the tagline. So I had this idea of creating almost like a collapsed cathedral, almost. So all these shards of very Gothic kind of stained glass fragments, but then kind of blending it with a little bit of kind of current materials. So that's a scale model. Yeah, it's the first time a client asked me for a model. So, so that, can you build a scale model of this so that we can visualize? Because everything that I've done here has to be approved by Alessandro, who is the creative director for Gucci in Italy. So everything has to be approved by the HQ, which is kind of scary. He's the guy who did the hit on the runway, so he's got really crazy ideas. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't have to change my concept. It went through the first round, which was amazing. Like I was surprised. I thought it's going to be shot down immediately. So you can see it's about 15 pieces of this kind of grill-like metal structures, and they're all welded as one piece and then cut and then intersected and then re-welded again, so that it creates almost like this interconnected piece. So yeah, and then that's where all like the 50,000 ringgit bags would be placed on top, you know. So I kind of like that. It's made in like Sungai Buloh, like some dirt factory, and then they put these bags on it, you know, which is kind of like, well, cool. And the bags are like super precious and expensive. So you can't see it here. I don't know whether I have a photo of it up close. I don't really have it here. But you can see the stained glass is also custom made. It's UV printed glass. I kind of bastardized the Gucci logo and made it into a pattern. You know, their GG monogram. And kind of made my own pattern and printed it on a stained glass to create this stained glass effect. And then I had the same LED text panels that I had in the St. Regis, you know, sort of like teasing these people. So yeah, so that was pretty fun. And then after that, I've been doing like a string of late night events. You know, this was for another alcohol company. You know, like, you know, they want to incorporate sound with lights. So they are very short-lived projects. They all last for a couple of hours. You know, it took months to develop, but last for a few hours. But I think it's part of my kind of development in terms of materials, in terms of structure, in terms of understanding how people would perceive the work. Yeah. And then this is another piece that I did for Clef. This was the first Clef KL Architecture Festival that was held. And they got this location for me, you know, no budget. Don't know if there's any Clef person here, but yeah, usual, no budget. So kind of using very little, but kind of using the aesthetics of the park. This park is that famous little park next to KLCC. And it's a random photo of me, but it's quite an important moment, I feel. This is where I did my LASIK surgery. I have a condition where my eyesight is really bad since I was young. My power is above 1,000. So I decided to do LASIK surgery with a huge risk that when I do my surgery, because of my high power, I would see flashes of light at night, and light would be like bokeh effect permanently for the rest of my life. And I can't see glaring light. It'll be like, for you guys, it might be dim, but for me, it'll be like really glaring. But I'm like, yeah, you know, I just want to do it. I just want to like be free from wearing glasses. So I did that, and yeah, and I just had to live with, you know, all this after these effects, you know. But it kind of affected the kind of work I do after that too. You know, it's more toned down. It's not so intense and like crazy, you know, trippy lights anymore. So I'm beginning to do kind of small controlled pieces. You know, this is also another piece I did for Kun Hui, his store in APW. Something that's a bit more toned down. They're not like intense. They're not like crazy flashing lights. This is a piece I did for a client too, where it's a bit like your, you know, where you have that game where you have to run the hook through the wire and not touch it so that it doesn't flare up. If you can finish the loop without touching the metal, you win the game. So I used that to create this table lamp. So in order to keep the light on, you have to turn one round without touching the metal to keep the light on. So it's that annoying thing for like drunk people. Imagine coming home, you want to turn on a light, you have to play this stupid game to kind of have the lights turn on permanently. So yeah, it was pretty cool, you know. So so the metal can not touch, so that the light, yeah. So if you don't finish in a certain time, the light will just turn off. So you have to have like, imagine you're drunk and it's like fucking dark and you have to play this stupid game, which I really like. You know, it's very participative at the same time. Another piece. And then I got approached to do like my first like gallery kind of work. I mean, after so many years of doing my installations, it's always been very site specific. It's never in a white cube or a black cube, you know, or a fancy space. So Richard Kaur, who I respect a lot, is a gallerist based in Bangsa. He created this exhibition called Malaysian Art: A New Perspective, featuring a few very new artists in the scene. And I did this piece, which is actually in my house now. And it's basically kind of referencing a lot of the geometries that I'm interested, but then kind of materializing this idea of a three-dimensional grid in this wireframe metal, and then building this geometry out of actual glass neon lights, this kind of triangular geometry. So it kind of references, a bit of like human figure at the same time, and also you're supposed to visualize the piece as though this wire mesh isn't there and it's just a floating geometry. Yeah, this is a little like commercial I did for TEDx, which I actually spoke in Mandarin. Yeah. Mandarin is okay lah, it's not amazing, but yeah, I hope you guys didn't find that video. And this is another art gallery piece that I did for Art Central in Hong Kong, also with Richard Kaw. So I made this Shanzai chandelier as a critique to the artificiality of China, Shenzhen being the main production of electronics in the world, right? And most of the LED fittings we have in Malaysia or any part of the world comes from Shenzhen. So I actually went to Shenzhen to source all of these fittings and then made it in Malaysia and then brought it back to Hong Kong to install it for a couple of days. So it's all made out of fake LED lights. They're not original. And then it's kind of flat pack, and I've flown in together. I checked it in with flight and brought it over to Hong Kong from Malaysia. And then also I had that screen in the middle where it kind of like also critiques people at the same time. But in this case, it's a more international group of people, which is kind of fun. So it's a lot of like Malaysian kind of jokes, which no one gets. But if any Malaysian walks past, you can kind of get it. So it's a completely aluminum and steel structure, very lightweight looking. It's about 2 meters plus height. Yeah, and then this whole being overwhelmed with artwork and the whole art scene is a bit like too much for me. I think because I'm so used to doing my own thing with private clients, not in this white cube space where next to you have like a lot of lessons work, and then you have like Yayoi Kusama's work down the road. It's very pressuring to be in that room together with all his artworks, so I mean, I kind of felt that I wanted to go back to kind of having more freedom with my brief, so I started kind of picking up more international commissions, right? Until today, I haven't recreated the Star project that I did in Penang about 6 years ago, but there was a ton of inquiries for different kind of locations, different kind of use. This was for Diesel, the fashion brand. They wanted it to be their set for their fall-winter show in 2017. But because they changed the creative director when this project was happening, so it didn't go through, it didn't have the budget to do it. But it was a promising kind of inquiry. I mean, like the fact that they approached me to do it, actually was really fun. This was in Sunset Boulevard in LA. It's actually an office for Netflix, and they wanted to build. They have this campus, a new campus, and they wanted to just plug in the Star installation. It's about 5 stories high. In the middle of the campus. And I kind of like how, when I did it in Penang, it was very site specific to the building, but they kind of see it as an object. Can you just ship it over? Like, can you just ship over like a 5-story installation? I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. We have to build it from scratch. If it's in LA, then we would work with people in LA to build it right. So it didn't go through, obviously. But then another project in the US came about. This was for Nike in their HQ in Oregon, in Portland. So I love working with commercial brands. I love that artistic kind of overlay, the critique you can have with commercial brands, the level of depth. Like on the surface, you might kind of picture your work as very kind of straightforward, but I like to have a lot of layers behind it to kind of complement my idea and also like to kind of make the clients happy at the same time. So I really like how I can work with a lot of like kind of commercial fashion brands, in this case, a sport brand. So they DM me on Instagram. It was over Chinese New Year. This was 2018, I think. It was like Choyat, like seriously, like the timing is perfect. So I missed my Choyat because I had to do all these proposals for them, and I thought it was going to be like some sort of a scam. but it went through, and they were generally very supportive. So I worked with the contractors in Nike to fabricate this from scratch, and everything was just kind of done. I've been very used to doing design online, dealing with clients online without even going there. And I only went there when they were installing it. So it's a 5-story piece, inspired kind of like by a lot of the geometries that I use, is very angular geometries. But it kind of represents the tension. It's in this atrium space in one of their offices in Oregon. And it kind of showcases the push and pull between these 2 4-story pillars that they have in the atrium. So at certain angles, it's a very 2-dimensional piece. It's very flat. It's not 3D at all. If you look at it from right under, you see it as one thin, surface. But at certain angles, you can see how it has a kind of a more 3-dimensional quality to it. And it's my first time kind of looking at light in a more kind of daytime look, because obviously no one's going to stay up 9 p.m. to look at the work in office, right? They'll be gone by then, right? So we had to develop like a blade profile out of mirror stainless steel so that it reflects daylight without the lights being turned on, and creating the same effect during the day or so. So that's my definition of creating your own gallery space. So it's almost like a vitrine, it's almost like a glass vitrine that's 5 stories tall. And this is the view over the lake into the artwork, So it was pretty cool to have that. Then, right after that, in KL, Tom Dixon, I used to work for Tom Dixon, who's a lighting designer in London. And miraculously, he ended up in APW. He was in KL for a project, and it was so good to kind of meet someone you respect so much, and kind of serves as a reminder, to your work and your progression. Tom isn't even a trained lighting designer, but he's established a brand that is beyond lighting now. It's architecture, it's furniture, and I really love his progression too. Yeah, the last few slides kind of show like more of what I'm exploring now. So it's more kind of writings, talks, interviews. I always enjoy kind of having conversations and kind of explaining my work in different narratives. Using Instagram to explain work has a completely different kind of dynamic versus putting a very curated slide. So focusing on publications, different languages, giving talks. This was for Clef, to a bunch of architects, so TEDx, spoken English, not Mandarin, but yeah. So the last project that, also quite a recent project I did, this was for Art Science Museum in Singapore. So Art Science Museum, I'm sure you guys have been there. So it's a museum known for arts and tech. Team Lab had a very good exhibition there for a couple of years. And it was a show they were curating with NUS. And it's revolving around this very important guy in quantum physics / quantum computing, Richard Feynman, who is like the Da Vinci of our time. Are you driving, Chong Yan? Okay. and he's creative and he's also like mathematical at the same time. And this exhibition is supposed to celebrate him. But a lot of the exhibits were very cold-hard data and facts that can be very intimidating to the layman. And that's what Art Science Museum does. It always tries to find a different avenue to kind of transmit the information to reach a wider audience, more layman audience. And hence they curated a couple of artworks to go alongside the exhibition. So I was very lucky to be selected. They saw my work both when I did this about 3 years ago, and they remembered me and they waited for the right opportunity to find me to do this project with them, So sometimes patience, would pay off. And I got to spend some time with the Center for Quantum Technologies in NUS. So, I mean, what do I know about quantum computing, right? So they sent me to Singapore to spend like a couple of days with them, all these quantum physicists, to give me like a crash course on quantum computing in like one day. So there was like 5 different professors, kind of like, Jun, are you ready to like absorb all of this like rocket science, satellite thingy, you know? I'm like, sure, you know, I just got off a long flight. And yeah, so I mean, they did it really simple for me to understand, you know, looking at how supercomputers can exist, you know, entanglement. Quantum computing is something that people really don't know what it can do. It's not a classical computer where it's like, you know, 1 0 1 0 1 0. Quantum computing is a very fluid, almost living kind of system, you know, where it can exist in 2 different realms, you know. So people don't really know what it can do for us, but it has immense potential, you know. So I was taking one excerpt for it, you know. I'm looking at the materiality of supercomputers, and a quantum computer actually exists in a room. You know, it's not like one device. It's like a whole space, you know. And it's got like this maze of laser light that's kind of bouncing off mirrors, simply put. And I really like that kind of idea. And I extracted that very simply and transformed it into a lighting installation using lasers. So these are very low powered lasers. They're not like gonna zap your head off, you know. And then playing with mist, in this case fog, and also mirrors. So this was me kind of giving, so a long story behind this. It was right on opening night, and because it was really dark, everything in the exhibition space was really dark, and it was right before the education minister was supposed to come and officiate it, and I was doing my last rounds of check to the artwork, and I didn't see one of the other artists' work. It was this glass box, and he had also like a light piece, but it turned off at the split moment when I was walking past it, and I didn't see the glass box, and I smashed my head into it, the glass vitrine. This was like 1 hour before I was supposed to give the speech. So my forehead was just smashed. It was blood everywhere. And the minister was just walking into the main entrance, you know. So they had to wheel me out to the back door so that I don't cause a scene, and then like mop off the blood. And they wanted to send me to the hospital. I'm like, no, I want to give this talk, because a lot of the professors were there and the Nobel laureates were there, because it was a Nobel Museum partnership too. And I thought it was like an amazing opportunity to meet them also. So I can't see it, but my forehead is literally dripping with blood with a plaster stuck on it. And it's sort of messed up. I think I was wearing black, yeah.
You can explain that you're too enthusiastic about it.
Yeah. So they're like, did the laser do that to you? Like, there's a freaking hole in your head and there's blood. Are you okay? So I only went to the hospital at night, and they're like, wow, I had about 10 stitches on my forehead. So I waited for like about 8 hours. So that was fun. Yeah. So that's the piece. Very simple. In the middle, there's like a totem of mirrors on servo motors. So they rotate at very specific angles, pre-programmed. And then around it is an array of mirrors at different angles. So the idea is to create this geometry that I'm really obsessed, but in a laser medium. So it's not tangible at all. And it creates kind of like infinite configurations of geometry. And technically you could walk through it because it's not tangible at all. But because Singapore, so health and safety, they have to barricade it because they're so concerned that kids would stare on it and die. So even though it's very low powered, like Singapore, like in Singapore, so like we had to put a barrier in front of it so that people can't walk into it, but they can see it from up close. Yeah, so it's a GIF of how the 3 different configurations that we can generate from this layout. Yeah, and was recently displayed in Rex. I reinstalled the piece in their stairwell. Yeah, and this is how it looked like. This is the entrance to the actual cinema in Rex. So kind of building it along the stairwell and creating this experience before people reach the actual cinema space. Yeah, it was an event that I did too. Yeah.
Is it still there?
No, it was for this Ainyala Light Festival. Yeah, it was in Rex. So it was a competition for students to build interactive installations. And they invited me to do something there. Yeah. So this is the last slide I want to show, last poster I want to show. Something that I'm exploring with students at like Summer Uni. So I started teaching very recently at Summer Uni. I was invited by the HOD, the School of Arts, to run a lighting design subject with arts and design students. They never had one, and they had a syllabus last time, but it was very generic. It was like, let's look at lux levels, let's look at candela levels, let's look at how you can install light on the ceiling in a retail space. It's very interior, generic kind of application and understanding of light. So they wanted a very different approach to learning or experimenting about lighting. So they approached me to kind of run the syllabus, which was really fun for me. So I had to, and they said, just use the students, for your own benefits. Like, so you can have them develop ideas for you, for your projects. I'm like, sure, yeah. So this was the first semester that I did with a very small group. It's only like 5 students because it was a very new subject. This semester I have about 18 students. So we looked at the idea of Ganzfeld. Ganzfeld is something that James Turrell explores a lot, the idea of sensory deprivation, how you can plug yourself in a space where there is maybe just harsh red lights or harsh colored lights, and it kind of deprives you from a certain sense that you would have. When you put yourself, imagine in a room just filled with red light, you don't even know what color that objects are in the space, you don't even know what the person looks like in front of you. So this idea of depriving a certain sense heightens another sense that you have, something that I was really interested to explore with the students, using artificial light in this case, right? So we kind of developed, we have an Instagram post. So I've been wanting to do this, and I thought like it'd be a good day to kind of show this. It's a very new Instagram handle that kind of documents a lot of the process that we've been exploring with the students. So can you guys see my screen, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So you can see how, the kids are running through the Ganzfeld experiment in the room. So it's just red light. You can do this in the cover of your house in a room. You just need one ping pong ball, slice it into half, masking tape it on your eyes, cover both eyes. A colored light, preferably red light. So I'm using a Philips Hue light. You can actually change it to, it's a Wi-Fi bulb. You can change it to any colors. And then play white noise on your ears. So you can just Spotify a list of white noises. It could be sounds from a photocopy machine or an airplane lifting off. And then you stay there for about 3 minutes and then document what you visualize. It's quite crazy. Like, you see things that you would never see. It's almost like you're on mushrooms. So the vision is shaped from what you hear, the noise you hear, what you see beyond the curved face of the inner side of the ping pong ball, because you cannot define where is floor, where is ceiling, where is wall. It's just a void, right? And then also the colored light. So we had the students kind of document their experiences. Some of them think they are in a cave. Some of them actually thought they were surrounded by snakes. It was like very weird outcomes, like super unexpected. Some of them thought they were jumping off a plane. So it's almost like a very low-tech VR moment here. And nothing is high-tech here, but it's a very fun, interesting, bizarre experiment that you can do in your own home also. So that's a little diagram of how we did the experiment, the 3 elements you need. And then we kind of like spatialize a very short course, it's only about 2 months, and we kind of spatialize these findings, this cave idea, this long walkway ideas that they see, and then made it into installation of sort, a very spatial installation. So we played with polycarb panels to kind of create this idea of blurring floor, ceiling, walls. You're almost walking into through this plastic cave. And then we kind of, you can see here in this image, there's just a walkway of stones. So when you walk on it, there's like white noise. So it kind of recreates the white noise that they experience. But it's not an audio, it's actually part of the material that we use in the space to create this audible white noise. And it's just 6 pieces of, polycarb panel, no structure at all, super lightweight. And then we just bend it at different diameters to create this tunnel. And then we had a pink flex neon hidden on the floor to kind of wash the light over the polycarb. So as you walk through it, it gives you kind of a very distorted effect. You don't even know where you are now. And it's a very kind of short journey, and it kind of tapers into a very small profile at the end also. Yeah, it's still there, I think, because this was pre-MCO. So it was meant to be taken down, and I think I haven't seen the current state of it, but I think it should be still standing because it's in a very strange tunnel that Sunway Uni has in their entrance. So it's like a sunken basement that has like courtyards. So it's very well protected, and I hope it's still there. Yeah. And just some kind of, you can go check it out. Yeah, I think it's still there. And then some kind of just snippets of what I'm exploring with the students this semester. We're responding towards the what's happening now, right? And how people are very internalized. So how do artificial light kind of create different avenues for people to kind of go through their lives, whether it's having, when you don't go out for farming anymore, can you have your farming done indoors, and what sort of artificial light facilitates that? So we're building all these different totems. There are 6 different groups, and exploring different aspects of totems, whether it's farming, whether it's healing, whether it's memorial totem. So different functions of this totem uses different sort of lights and different sort of like form to create different sort of effects for people to get through their lives. It's almost like a therapy. So it's looking at the psyche of artificial light, looking at different impacts of color lighting. Different colors have different impacts to, humans, chromotherapy, how using rainbow colors can affect your certain moods. And having also like very kind of speculative locations. So, this was a proposal in Brazil, having a giant light response to the statue across. And then that, creating sort of like a cocoon idea in the middle of Times Square. And it recreates the interior, the effect of Central Park in New York, but in the middle of Times Square. Yeah, using green lighting. Yeah. And in this case, we're using a different color lighting to encourage different plant growth. So you can see here, lettuce would grow in different colors depending on the color temperature that we encourage it to grow. So it will show red leaves if the light is redder, it will show green leaves if the light is greener, and that will shape the look of the totem that they're designing. Yeah. So yeah, and we're also looking at not building it from physically because of what's happening now. My class is completely digital. I've never seen my students at all. It's all like just names on Blackboard. But we're gonna kind of showcase it on a virtual platform, hopefully. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's it. Oh, not too draggy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll stop you from sharing. Thank you so much. Wow. Okay.
Questions.
Yes, we do have some questions, and I think the question can be perhaps divided into the first part, which is mostly your commercial works, and also the second part is about your teaching. So I think let's start with I hope everyone is not brain fried because we are a bit, yeah, it's more than 2 hours, but yes, let's stay for another 30 minutes of Q&A. Just brain fried to the end. Okay. I think let's start with the questions relating to your teaching. I think Clarissa has a questions. Do you want to ask? Before I ask my question about the commercial work. I actually have a lot of questions about the commercial work. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Just wanted to, is it your first time teaching?
Yes. Yeah.
So I just wanted to understand how that translation process was like, and what kind of pedagogical practices you kind of put into your teaching. Did you how was that process like to translate all your experience?
It was really like a crash course. The HOD approached me I think about 2 weeks before I was supposed to start my class. So Jun, can you come up with a syllabus from scratch and just do whatever you want, right? Here's our budget. We have some budget to build an installation at the end. So I'm like, okay, I mean, what's new, right? I mean, which client isn't like that, So I'm like, okay, but I can do anything you say. Yeah, you can do anything. I'm like, sure. So, I did the syllabus. I had to fulfill certain requirements. So I also kind of had certain classes where we learn about actual characteristics of light fittings. We look at, lux levels. We learn how to measure lights. We use how to simulate lighting on Dilux simulation software. So we also learn some fundamentals on lighting design too, but then how these translate instead of a very generic retail or interior space into an art installation format instead. So it's not very different from the works that I do in my commercial projects. It's just that I have kind of helpers now, and kind of like they would kind of brainstorm ideas for me, then just me one brain kind of developing ideas. So I'll kind of throw them ideas and go get some ideas and come back to me, and feed you with information, and then I'll guide you guys through it. So I think I'm the kind of the bridge between them and like the making process. I would use my kind of experiences guiding them how to make certain things, how to translate those ideas into, built forms. Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's too different for me. It's just that dealing with the students, it's just a bit of a headache for me. And now it's completely digital, which I totally like, because I can just roll out a bit at 8 a.m. My class is like 4.5 hours, one shot, 8 to 12:30 every Tuesday. And I'll just roll out a bit at 7 a.m. in my pajamas and I'll start my class, So, and I love that. I wish this would be permanent. Yeah.
What's their major? Is it, pardon?
Architecture.
Oh, someone has architecture?
Yeah. Yeah. So not lighting design at all. So it's really like my experiences on the ground, I feel. Yeah.
We feature a lot of architects here turn into something else.
Yeah. Yes.
But, yeah. So I hope that answer your question, Carissa. Okay, I think I'll start off asking some questions about the commercial works earlier. So to be honest, I like the differences between your works and maybe Chong Yan's work. So perhaps both of your works looks very futuristic, but your execution is more in the physical realm, like carrying out in a material sense, and where Chong Yan's is more in the virtual world. So I find that your works very much is actually context based. So it's really depends on like abandoned building that you have, or like in a toilet with knees, and then you put a light over it, and you have to be very resourceful. Like how the Nike one, it has to be a light installation, emphasis on daylight instead of nightlight. What would you say is the biggest challenge though when you're doing this like context-based installation?
I think it's maybe the idea that it cannot exist anywhere else apart from the space. It has to be permanently there. It's either it's there or it's not there. It can record it into a different location, So like the Star Project in Butterworth, you have to go all the way to Butterworth to look at it, So it's a very restrictive kind of audience, like Nike. Only if you work for Nike, you can see that piece. So it doesn't reach out to a larger audience, and it's not something I'm looking for, but there are other ways to kind of expand your work to a larger audience through communication or through documentation, right? Yeah, but it's probably, I don't think it's a problem, but I think it's an interesting way of looking at my artwork. I don't have a lot of permanent pieces. A lot of the work don't exist anymore, which is kind of interesting and heartbreaking. So they only exist in photographs and videos. Yeah, so like this Instagram collection feed is kind of like a gallery space for me, because a lot of the works don't exist anymore. Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Actually, that one actually bring me to. But before that, I was thinking like, so that could be a good point, as in like, because it's quite contextual. So it's supposed to be like a benefit, right? Because you can't experience anywhere else, like on the internet.
You have to do that. Yeah.
You have to be there. But say this is very fast paced. So like I think like all of your projects, they're like you say 1 to 2 weeks a month, and then they're like dealing with fashions, runways, and etc. Will you still get the same satisfaction though?
Yes, I do. I really like that whole kind of like, not sleeping and doing it, and that split second of seeing the reaction of people towards it. I feel like it's more impactful than something that you have seen, because to see the piece, you're not seeing it through social media. Like for example, if you have exhibitions that last for a month, I probably see a lot of it on social media now, unless I'm not on Instagram at all. Like I've probably seen photos of it, and me going there to see it feels like I've seen it already. So it doesn't have that sense of surprise versus seeing a work that was built for an event. Like you have to be there for 2 hours and see it before it's taken down. You can never see it again. You can only see it through photos. So I kind of like that spontaneous effect of it. And adrenaline, you only see it for a split second, and you spend all the effort building it only for a selected audience. That time, I think, when I was a bit younger. So now, I think I'm a bit more cautious, not having sleepless nights and all that, crazy intense hours, So I have a bit more control on how long I want to display my works now. Yeah. It's quite heartbreaking to take down your work after spending 2 months, but
exactly.
Fine.
When you put so much effort. But moving forward as an established artist, and as in but given the advantages of being context and also the time, the time frame that you have, and then you need to be there, the time and the context. Moving forward as an artist, would you want to bring this online, like what Chong Yan did, virtual, or you still stay with a physical realm of creating art?
I think I still enjoy the idea of making stuff. I love technology too. I don't think I would subscribe purely just to technology, but I definitely find some way into my artwork. But I still like the touch and feel of my works. The idea that it can deteriorate over time. There's a lot of factors around it, the weather, the people that would shape the artwork. So yeah, I'm pretty much traditional in that sense. But I always like to see how it can transcend its characteristic, with technology. So yeah, definitely something that I'm curious to explore. So yeah.
I see. But by far, you have not experiment in that realm yet, right?
Not too much. The final outcome is always something physical for me in most of my works. It's either physical or it's not built at all. So it doesn't exist in the digital world. Yeah.
Okay, perhaps we'll be looking forward to that then one day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Yvonne has a question. Yvonne, you there? Hi, Yvonne. Okay, she's away. Anyway, wait, let me. Okay, she can't talk. Never mind, I'll just speak for her. So she has a question. A lot of your work, you're mentioning about not having budget. So she was wondering. Let me just scroll up to her question real quick. You mentioned many of your projects do not have a budget. I'd assume no budget is no finance. So what made you accept the project that doesn't have any financial backing?
I think in my early projects, I tend to do that because, kind of building your portfolio. But, I think the projects that have very little budget usually are the more successful ones because you are really resourceful and thoughtful about how you use your materials. Sometimes when you get a lot of budget, you get carried away doing things. But in some case, it's really helpful to have a lot of budget, to do big things. But the Star project was originally meant to be 3 times bigger the size than what it was built. So I thought that would be a bit overkill. So the fact that they slashed the budget, made it into a 5-story installation instead. I think it's just enough. But yeah, I think you tend to become more resourceful, and it's something that I want to explore too, because I usually work with a fabricator, and now I kind of want to bring fabrication to my part, and I myself want to fabricate it and not just design it. So I kind of want to get my hands even dirtier, from now onwards, So with that, then probably you can have more management of your budget, because you are making it yourself, right? You're not getting someone else to do it for you.
So do you do your own programming as well?
At the moment, no. I am no programmer, but I would work with my partners, my close partners who are programmers. Yeah.
I see. So you're the one coming up with the ideas, and then someone else may do the program and then fabricate it on site.
It's kind of bridging the language. He's also getting better at understanding all my crazy ideas. He's like, yeah, I get you now. So he can whip up a code in just looking at my face. He knows what I want, so that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. hopefully in the future you might talk to your replica and then he knows what you want as well. And then
I know. Yeah, probably.
So maybe tie back to a bit of today's topic. So perhaps you maybe give us some final words about like what do you think about the immaterial world of technology? Just share.
I think it's super interesting. I think what I'm doing now with my students this semester is basically that. You know, I've never seen their faces at all, because you know students, they don't want to show their faces like some of the people here too. So I've never seen 18 of my students' faces at all, and I'm grading them. I'm giving them assignments. I think Nicholas can probably relate to this.
Nicholas is smiling over there.
And Ian as well. Yeah, so they're like, I mean, like they could be fake. They could be like not even there. You know, it could be like, you know, deep fake. You know, people. You know, just responding and doing fake assignments for me to grade. You know, so I could be like the only person in my Blackboard. We use this platform called Blackboard. It's like the Zoom for university. Yeah. I've only heard their voices when I present, when I ask them to present. So. I think it's interesting in the education sector. I think it's a very fast-paced, straightforward kind of process. Like you have information, you pass it on to the student just over the screen. You know, like there's no like coming late for class. Like you're there, I'm telling you now, you learn. You know, and a lot of things you have to learn how to communicate like virtually. You know, like they have to present their ideas over a screen, and I have to grade it over a screen. You know, like I can't see what materials they choose. I can't judge what sort of design they have. You know, it's just completely over the black mirror that's in front of us. You know, so I don't know where it'll be. You know, but I think it's an interesting avenue. You know, like I do wonder also, a lot of my works are so made, like it's so physical, right? You know, so where is a place for it now? You know, does it only stop at a certain stage, you know? Yeah, you know, so maybe looking at certain kind of mediums and platforms like what Chong Yan mentioned would be interesting. But I would also like kind of want to extend this physicality to it. So maybe it's a very different kind of way of presenting physical materials. And I think it's kind of like a chicken egg situation, like when there's a lot of digital kind of approach in our world, we tend to yearn for more physical touch at some point.
There's always a tension and a contradiction.
Yeah, it's always a tension, and I kind of like to maintain the tension too, to be that, you know, the black and white between that. Yeah.
I think the only perhaps the unforeseen consequences would be, what if the tension one day doesn't there? I mean, it wasn't there anymore. As in, like the black side completely take over the white side. That there's the white no percent at all. That, I mean, I don't know whether there's a possibility of that or not. Like,
yeah. So like even now, so because I also have a design studio, Power Ideas, so I try to kind of slide in lighting stuff into my spatial projects, like my interior projects, without the client knowing, you know. So, you know, we did this project called While I Was Selling Street, and there's a lot of like interactive kind of lighting incorporated into it, you know. Not telling the client what it does. I'm like, here's the budget, here's the cost, just let me do it. And they trust me. And yeah, so just finding kind of avenues for it to slide in without people noticing it. And then it kind of exists and have more kind of permanent pieces, you know, in these spaces. So I think having also like a design studio arm, which is kind of useful also. You can plug in your works in very different formats, you know, very low key without people realizing it too at a certain point. Yeah.
All right.
I just wondered whether I could maybe,
yes,
you know, have a chance to ask a little question.
You will have a question before.
Yeah, I think probably my relationship with Jun is kind of unique and different compared to you guys. So I'm interested in the, as you can imagine, because I'm still teaching, in the sort of usefulness of architecture education point of view, sort of thing. Jun, obviously you went through Taylor's, the traditional thing, you know, we did real cardboard models and what have you.
Yeah.
But now you're doing non-architecture. So I think my question is basically, how do you see the traditional architecture education you went through, not the UK thing, but the Malaysian thing, and maybe Melbourne or whatever. How useful was that in equipping you to think in the way you think now? I don't even want to talk about the skills, but in terms of how you look at ontology, at reality, at life.
Yeah, I think when I did my master's in UK, my professor was actually arts professor. So it was bizarre. Like my final thesis in architecture was actually been taught by an arts professor. So she opened this whole world of sculpture to me, which I immediately fall in love. I mean, I've always loved arts, and it's something that I would pursue if I didn't do architecture. And we looked at Picasso, we looked at a lot of sculptors, and how sculpture making is very in parallel with architecture form making. And there was actually part of my thesis too, finding that parallels between making sculptures and making buildings. They're kind of very similar, just very different scale, and architecture has just a shitload of regulations. But it starts off at a very similar trajectory, and then it ends at different phases, and I really like that, so I like how you could stop at sculpture, or you could proceed and move beyond sculpture and eventually end up in a building. So I think that really opened my eye, and my studio tutors were these designers, Tonkin Liu. It's a duo. Don't know whether you guys have seen their work, and they are very old school people, husband and wife, and they make really kind of complex forms in their sculptures, but then using very, very low tech methods, plasticine, pencil stacking, wires to form make, but then ending up in a very complicated, almost parametric form. And I like that, maybe I come from the era where I'm not that old, but I still like that old school touch to it. But then having a very futuristic manifestation to the end result, So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a full artist now. I don't know what am I now, but I still do two types of projects. I wouldn't say I'm an architect, but I did spend 7 years studying architecture, so I feel like it's a long time. But I'm not an architect, but I do spaces, I do spatial design, and I do like.
Well, I've undergone some kind of change too in the sort of long process of teaching. Jun, you probably remember during your time. I would have come across as somebody who told everybody, gosh, you guys almost get it part 1, part 2, and part 3.
Yes.
And become a registered architect in Malaysia. I don't hold that view now. It kind of changed after I went to Auckland. I think architecture is very much a way to look at the world, a way to look at life and the bigger themes in life. You look at power, you look at social relationships, and you look at meaning, semantics, and that kind of stuff. And that you could learn through the traditional architectural sort of educational path.
Yes.
But you don't have to stick to it. That's only one way to help you to look at those things, the bigger sort of thematic things in life. And in the end, you don't really have to do your sort of, be a guy in a firm doing architecture. Haziq, I hope you're listening. So you could be anything you want, because your mind has been totally open, and the words you've been using here is, was it mind blown and brain fried? Yeah, once you get to that stage, then, well, the world's your oyster. You could do anything you want, really.
Yeah, you could be anywhere. I mean, and I think Malaysia is a great place to be, things just roll faster here,
You could be anywhere. It sounds like a tagline from a Matrix movie, though.
Yeah.
Completely.
Because the discussion today has kind of veered on what's real and what's not real, and and the corollary to that is what's useful and what's not useful, and what do you want to be and what do you not want to be, or what you shouldn't be. Yeah, so we're in that transitional sort of liminality world, sort of, what shall I be? Who am I, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But really, you can be anybody you want. Yeah,
exactly.
I think the lifelong questions, the lifelong quest of finding your identity become more challenging in the future.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So I hope Jun answered your question, Mr. Yan. Do you have any?
Oh yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, although I didn't see your underground building. I can see that you ended up with a sort of basement thing in some ways.
Still obsessed with underground spaces.
Well, I got a few students who want to do underground cemeteries, sort of thing. I had two students who wanted cemeteries. Can you supervise me on doing cemeteries? So I did cemeteries for 2 years.
Yeah, a lot of people
doing cemeteries even in Taylor's, right?
Yeah, Taylor's, yeah.
Taylor's. Oh, what did I miss out? Perhaps.
Su Hui did the underground cemetery, and then Matthew Goh before her did Promesa Park, which is promission, the way you freeze the dead body until cold nitrogen, until it turns into powder, and then you just touch it, it just crumples into powder.
Wow.
And that powder is organic, so it's good for plants. And it's different from if you were to, cremate the body, that's inorganic, so it's not good for plants.
I see.
So I kind of learned from my students as well how to do away with dead bodies. It's quite exciting, actually.
You share your thesis here.
Oh yeah, you could invite them. They're pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Jun, first of all, for your sharing and answering to our question. I think this is the longest session that I ever have, 2 and 45 minutes hour. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for bearing with us. I hope your brain is fried. And thank you, Chong Yan, once again. Thank you, Jun. Yeah, so to end the session, usually I will have a selfie, but since half of the participant is gone, but yes, we're gonna do the selfie anyway. So please turn on your video and then camera, and then we're gonna do like a selfie to the screen. All right. Okay.
Ian is trying to understand what's happening, but Ian just smile.
No, I do know what's happening. Just smile.
How dare you underestimate Ian?
In fact, we're converting everything to online. We're not seeing faces anymore.
Yeah, so much better.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Smile. All right. Thank you, guys. Good night. I hope you. Bye bye. See you next week.
Have a good night.